Hey guys, it's Mr. Jennings. Again, we're not doing memory verses right now, with us not being in class. So I did want to take some time to go over our next passage um, that we would have been doing as far as memory verses. Um, James chapter 3. Um, the next few weeks would have been 3 through 8. James 3, 3 through 8. Where we're looking at our words and the tongue and what it can do. So I'm going to read through the verses first, and then I just want to talk about it a little bit with you guys. This will be pretty brief, but I think it's important that we go over it a little bit. James chapter 3, verses 3 through 8. Behold, we put bits in the horses' mouths that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. Behold also the ships, which though they be so great, and are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth. Even so the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. For every kind of beasts, and of birds, and of serpents, and of things in the sea, is tamed, and hath been tamed of mankind. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. So again, these are the verses are looking at the tongue, and we've looked at in previous chapters the idea of self-control, and one of the biggest areas of that are the words that we use and how we use our tongue. Um, if we have the self-control sometimes to close our mouths and not say something, or um, just to be careful what we say. That's a huge part of self-control. Um, we know this. This is stuff you've heard before, but the tongue, it can do a lot of damage to someone, or it can be a great help. And the question to ask ourselves is: are we using our words to encourage, to edify, to build up, for positive things, or are we using our words to tear down and hurt, and slander and lie and all those things? So it is a powerful tool and a powerful weapon. It just depends on which side we are giving that weapon to. The side fighting for good or the side fighting for evil. And we're probably going to fall on both sides of that. It's true for all of us. There's As I get older, you'd think I'd get wiser, but there's still times where it's like, man, I shouldn't have said that, or I wish I would have said that differently. Not necessarily something hurtful, but just maybe not didn't come across the way you wanted it to, or sometimes it is hurtful, and we think, man, that was wrong of me, and that was the flesh winning over the spirit there. One verse I did want to go to, Psalm 140 and verse 3. It talks about David's talking about the evil men, and what does he say about them? He says the evil men sharpen their tongues like a serpent. Adder's poison or is under their lips. Adder's like another type of snake. But just from that, the idea that the words don't only harm the people that the words go to, but the person who speaks those words can be harmed as well, through the bitterness. That's usually what the words come from. It's almost like a vicious cycle. The words come out of bitterness or some kind of ill will or feeling towards someone. But those words, and the more we speak it, the more it feeds it. And so that causes harm to us. In the same way it can harm who they're spoken to or about. This verse is saying they wound like a snake bite. Some snake bites are worse than others. Some might not even break the skin and don't really hurt. There might be pain, but it doesn't really harm you. But then there are some snake bites that can do a ton of damage. That it can harm just an area of your body, where you lose function of a part of your body, or it can go to the point of killing someone. And the idea of a snake bite there are varying snakes, there are varying snake bites, and that's what our tongue and our words are like. And they can do a great deal of damage. It can do a little damage, but a lot of times they can do damage one way or the other. As I was reading through these verses, I actually got stuck on I'm sure some of you, while you've been out of school, have gotten on some YouTube rabbit trails. And something I didn't ever think I would find interesting was these big ships that are um, built, and in um, these big buildings. They build these ships, these huge cargo ships and those kinds of things, but somehow they have to get them into the water. And these videos were of ships being released into the water, and they're on these big mechanisms that allow them to go. They kind of slide off into the water, and there's several of these mechanisms, but they're pretty small mechanisms considering the size of the ship, and they have to do their job the right way, and it's critical. But as these little pieces um, are released or whatever they have to do, um, it sets in motion this huge ship moving, and then the wave and the splash that goes along with that ship being placed into the water all starts with just a little movement of this mechanism that's a small thing. And I thought of that a little bit too, and just the way that as we look at these verses, that things can be changed by such a small thing. And that's true as well. And then it talks about um, for every kind of beasts and of birds and of serpents and of things in the sea is tamed and hath been tamed of mankind. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. And I couldn't help but think of it. It's been in the media lately, even on ESPN radio, which is the only way I heard about it. I have not watched this show, but I've heard about this show called The Tiger King. And they've been talking about it on some of the sports shows I listen to. And it sounds like these people are pretty crazy, but the idea of, these people can tame um, these tigers, and they can control these large animals, these beasts that we wouldn't think of as tameable. They can do that, and yet from what I've heard, again, I have not watched this, I promise you that, uh, they live lives that are pretty crazy, and they do a lot of bad things, and probably say a lot of bad things about people. So they can control these large animals and tame them and teach them, but they can't control their own tongue, or this small, what we think of as small thing. Um, they can't tame it, and they can't control it. And that's kind of a silly illustration. Again, I could be totally wrong because I haven't seen the show. Just picked up on some bits and pieces of it. But the idea of what you say and the words and how you use them, they're important. Even when you're not even talking about anything that would be of importance to anyone, it's just something that you and your friends are goofing around and just talking. But be careful of your words in any situation. As this verse talks about, the tongue is unruly, it is unstable, and can never be fully restrained from evil, really, no matter how hard we try. It's not to say we shouldn't put in the effort, and we shouldn't strive to control our tongues and control the words. Uh, so I think some of the most important things we can get from these verses is that we need to be aware of the power we have with our tongue and the words that we say, and to make sure we avoid careless words. So not only avoiding the wrong words and saying bad things, but avoid the careless words where you just don't think before you speak. Now, we think of these a lot of times as just, no, don't say the bad words. Don't say bad things about bad people. But I think it's also telling us here to make sure we are thinking before we speak, and that's an important part of this as well. So again, as I said, this isn't too long. I wanted to keep it kind of short. They say they're not too long, but then they probably seem long when I start talking to you guys. But again, just an encouragement to make sure we are making sure the words that come out of our mouths are the right kinds of words. And that all goes back to a root of what's in your heart. What's on the inside is what's going to come out. If we'll look at the rest of the verses, or more of these verses in this chapter, the next time I do this. But just talking about the idea of what's inside and what comes out, the sowing, the reaping, that kind of idea. There's a lot of truth in that. And what you put in is what's going to come out. And we've looked at that as well. So again, let's do our best to allow the Lord to help us to control. I shouldn't say do our best, but allow the Lord to work through us to control our tongues. control our words, to not only avoid bad words, but to avoid the careless words where we don't think about what we are saying. All right, so let's go ahead and pray, and then that will be it for today. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. Lord, we thank you again for each of the students. And Lord, as we look at this passage and the idea of the damage that our mouths can do, our words can do, they are a small tool, a small a portion of our body and of who we are. But Lord, they can do so much to help those around us. They can do so much, though, to hurt those around us. So, Lord, help us to allow you to work through us. And, Lord, fill us inside so that the right things will come out. Help us to not only use the right words, but to make sure we are thinking before we speaking and not just being careless about throwing words out there, and just to see the value in sometimes just keeping our mouths closed, Lord, and just to know that allowing you to control what we say and what we do as well is important, and help us to make sure that we strive to just in many other ways, Lord, give our time to you, and give our tithes to you in church, and give in other ways, Lord, help us to give our mouths over to you, to say, Lord, I want my mouth to be a fountain of blessing to others, and Lord, that fountain needs to be sourced through you. Again, be with each of the students as we're apart. Help us to be a help to them as it has been to me, and then just watch over each of them and their families. Keep them healthy and safe. Thank you for all that you do. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, guys, I'll talk to you next time. Bye.